Welcome to NightStoryHQ, where darkness whispers and legends never die. Tonight, we explore a tale as old as fear itself. A creature born in shadow, caught between man and beast. This is the story of the werewolf, its origins in ancient myth, its path through blood-soaked villages, and its transformation into a symbol of both terror and tragedy on the silver screen. Settle in, listen closely, and beware the full moon. The forest was quiet, too quiet. A low wind stirred the leaves, brushing them like whispers through the trees. Then came the sound, heavy, ragged breathing. Footsteps. But not quite human, not quite animal. Something was hunting. But this is not a story that begins in the woods. It begins thousands of years ago, in the minds of our earliest ancestors. People who lived in fear of the wilderness, of predators, of the darkness that crept beyond the firelight. It begins with a question. What if the real monster wore a human face? The first tales of shapeshifters, men turning into animals, date back to ancient civilizations. In Greece, there was the legend of King Lycaon, a ruler who served human flesh to the gods and was cursed by Zeus to live as a wolf. From this myth, we get the word lycanthropy, meaning the condition of turning into a wolf. In Rome, the poet Ovid wrote of men who wandered the wilds, changed by magic or madness into beasts. These were not simple fables. They were warnings, parables meant to teach people about the dangers of crossing moral boundaries, of surrendering to the beast within. But while Greek and Roman tales were poetic, Nordic and Germanic legends were brutal. In Norse mythology, there were warriors known as berserkers, men who wore the skins of wolves or bears and charged into battle with inhuman rage. Some said they became animals. Others believed they summoned the spirit of the beast. In the saga of the Volsungs, a father and son discover cursed wolf pelts that, once worn, transform them into wolves for 10 days. They lose control, they attack, they kill, and they suffer for it. These early stories carried a theme. Transformation was punishment. The loss of one's humanity was a curse, not a gift. By the Middle Ages, this idea had grown darker. As Christianity spread across Europe, belief in werewolves became entangled with fears of witches, demons, and heresy. The church taught that transformation into a beast was a sign of diabolical influence, a pact with Satan, a punishment from God. Villages whispered of men who vanished into the forest at night and returned with blood beneath their fingernails. Livestock were slaughtered. Children disappeared. Suspicion bloomed like rot. Accusations followed. And then came the trials. In 1589, a German farmer named Peter Stump was arrested and accused of being a werewolf. He confessed, under torture, to making a pact with the devil, receiving a magical belt that allowed him to become a wolf. He was blamed for the death of livestock, neighbors, even his own children. He was executed brutally, burned alive after a public dismemberment. His story spread like wildfire. Across Europe, others were hunted, not just witches now, but werewolves too. The werewolf had become real, or at least people believed it was, a monster with claws and fur, but born from fear, superstition, and the darker impulses of mankind. But time changes fear. As Europe entered the Enlightenment, belief in magic began to fade. Science and reason replaced fire and folklore, yet the legend of the werewolf endured, not as fact, but as fiction, not as faith, but as symbol. Writers of the 18th and 19th centuries resurrected the werewolf as a character of tragedy. In George W. M. Reynolds' 1847 novel, Wagner the Werewolf, the protagonist makes a Faustian deal, gaining immortality but cursed to become a wolf every full moon. The werewolf became less of a demon, more of a metaphor, a reflection of guilt, rage, hidden desires. As psychology emerged, so too did the idea of the dual self. Sigmund Freud explored the notion that beneath the civilized man lived an untamed primal force, a beast waiting to break free. The werewolf was the perfect symbol. It represented what we repress, what we fear in ourselves. Not just fangs and fur, but violence, lust, anger, pain. And then came cinema. In 1913, the silent film The Werewolf was one of the first horror movies, though sadly now lost. But in 1941, everything changed. The Wolf Man, starring Lon Chaney Jr., defined the werewolf for generations. With fog-drenched forests, ominous chants, and a man tormented by a curse he cannot control, the film laid out the rules that still linger in popular culture. A werewolf transforms under a full moon. The curse is passed through a bite. Only a silver bullet can end the suffering. Larry Talbot, the film's protagonist, is bitten by a werewolf and slowly loses control of himself. He becomes the very monster he dreads. And yet we pity him, because he never wanted this. He is not evil. He is cursed. This tragic element, the unwilling monster, made the werewolf more than just horror. It made him human. As decades passed, werewolves roamed freely through film and fiction. In An American Werewolf in London, 1981, we see the terrifying physical agony of transformation. Bones snapping, skin stretching, body betrayed by curse. In The Howling, werewolves become metaphors for addiction, desire, and hidden communities. In Ginger Snaps, the metaphor becomes adolescence, a teenage girl who begins to transform after her first period, paralleling puberty with monstrous change. By the 2000s, werewolves had shifted again. No longer just cursed, they were powerful. In Underworld, they were warriors. In Twilight, protectors. In Harry Potter, teachers. In Teen Wolf, misunderstood teens trying to balance life and beastly instincts. Yet even in these modern versions, one thing remained: the transformation, the struggle, the duality. Because at its core, the werewolf legend is about the tension between control and chaos. The man who becomes the monster. The person who hides a darker truth beneath the surface. It's a theme we all understand because we all feel it. That anger we try to hide, the pain we suppress, the fear we carry, the wildness we deny. The werewolf is not just a creature of the night. It is a mirror, a reflection of what we might become if the wrong night falls, if the right wound is inflicted, if the full moon shines and we have nothing left to hold on to. And still, the howling continues. In every culture, some version of the werewolf exists. In parts of Africa, people tell of shape-shifting hyenas. In Native American legends, skinwalkers, witches who can become animals, are feared and avoided. In Asia, tiger men and fox spirits share the same themes of transformation, power, and inner danger. Why do we keep returning to this myth? Because transformation frightens us. Losing control terrifies us, but it also tempts us to shed the mask, to become something raw, to run unbound through the forest, howling not in fear, but in freedom. That is the true curse of the werewolf. Not just the blood and the claws, but the truth that deep down, some part of us wants it. Closing conclusion and goodbye. You've just heard the tale of the werewolf, a story that crosses centuries and continents, a reflection of our deepest fears and secret desires. From ancient curses to Hollywood screams, the beast in the shadows still lingers. Perhaps it's not in the forest. Perhaps it's inside us all. Thank you for joining us on Night Story HQ. If this story stirred something inside you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with those who love the dark. Have a legend or nightmare you want us to explore next? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, sleep with one eye open, and if you hear a howl in the distance, pray it's only the wind.